Hello! Welcome to 2021. It's gonna be the greatest year where there's no What's that? Welcome to 2022, the greatest year where there's gonna be no I feel like I'm just repeating myself. I hope you guys had a great break. I had an awesome holiday. I got went away for a holiday. My hair grew and I got and then I went to a festival and I got and then I had Christmas with my family, but I didn't have family because of COVID. And now I'm back in the workshop and I got Did you get So it's been a few weeks, you probably need a bit of a catch up on where you are with the build. So the last thing we were doing with the DURAMAX swap on the Patrol. The last thing you saw was the LS motor came out of that chassis, and in this episode we're picking it up where we left off. The new motor's gonna be going in. The thing is, this car's already actually finished in real life. So if you wanna see sneak peeks, jump over to my Instagram to see this thing already driving. But it's a new year, which means new things. And one thing I've done, I'm just gonna let you know, because I know I'm gonna get a ton of people talk about it in the comments. I have changed the edit a little bit. When I say change, I've added some things, trying to liven it up a bit more engaging, a bit more entertaining. So let me know in the comments how much you hate it. Well, you can probably guess what's happening in this episode. That is right. We're marrying the gearbox to the engine, putting the engine in the car, then hooking up the fuel system, then we've got power steering, and then we've got the aircon to do, and then we've got the engine mounts, then we've got to put the body back onto the chassis, and then we've got to paint the thing, and then we've got to get it running and make sure it runs right. Alrighty, so I've just chopped off all the engine mounts. It wasn't too bad actually, just ran down the welds and cleaned it up. Sometimes these things are a bit of a fight to get off, but once I trimmed those welds back, knocked it with a hammer a couple of times, she popped straight off. So the next thing, now this is pretty sweet. Heath has so kindly lent me this, but it's basically the jig to put these mounts in. So obviously one way to do it is drop the motor in, tack it up where you think, and then pull the engine out and back in and out and all that sort of stuff. But this basically sets those mounts exactly where they need to be, so you can weld them first go and they're bang on. So this little piece, this plate here welds onto the 4 bolts that hold the steering box on. So I'll whip them out, bolt this on, and then there's the 2 engine mounts here. Bolt them on and then can tack the engine mounts on. This is actually a full length, so it can do the rear transmission cross member as well. But we'll get to that in a sec because there's a bit of cutting and I've got to weld a plate on for that. And then it's basically done. Engine mount, gearbox mount done. Fully weld them up and then the motor can drop in. I think I'm gonna get someone in to weld them too. So obviously I've done a lot of welding, got pretty experienced doing that, but this is one of those crucial kind of welds you need, and to get them engineered properly, you really need a qualified welder to put them in. So hopefully Nathan will run down today or tomorrow, we can weld them up and then the motor can go in. Alright, I've got the front mounts on, all tacked up using the jig. I managed to work that out, a little bit of trimming on a couple of the mounts just to get them sorted, but the tacks are done. Now the transmission cross member, there is a plate that needed to be welded in, so just about to sort that out. The jig itself obviously is built to sort that out too, so this is a plate that goes on the back here. Look at that, bang bang, a couple of bolts, and that should weld on there like that. We'll get all that tacked up. I could probably fully weld this plate here actually because it's so much weld going on, the structure's gonna be fine, but Nathan is on his way to do these engine mounts because there's really not a lot of meat on there, and like I said, I don't want to trust like having that much torque in a motor and then having just a little weld on there. If I don't do it right, put too much heat in or not enough penetration, then we could have some dramas down the road. So I'll leave it to the professionals, but I'm gonna kick on with this cross member and see if we can get that plate welded on.
Love when the celly gon' ring. I'm putting on my team. Money come flow, no sink. Spring, 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 spring. Double cup my drink. Love my little baby, no leak. I be counting money, no sheep. I can do it up in my sleep. Shorts out chain when the money came. Money bag, here I'm getting money back. Need the money counting for the money, ain't. No, I need you, so don't you run away.
Well, that is one major item crossed off the list. Nathan did a mad job welding this up. He even gave me some pointers as well about different ways to weld depending on what the application is. So the mounts are on, he's happy with it, nice and solid. I've done the transmission cross member as well, so that's all welded up, and I've put a lick of paint on everything. I'm still gonna get Dino to throw another bit of rust proofing on top of that, and I'm gonna drop the engine and gearbox in and see how it sits inside this chassis, and then we can really start hammering on with all the exhaust, dump pipe, getting the cab on, seeing how things gonna look.
The next day.
Now, today is the day I wanna hook the gearbox onto the motor and drop it in the car. But the bad news is, my torque converter is still probably another 3 or 4 days away. I rang them this morning and it's not gonna be ready until next Tuesday, but I'm not gonna let that stop me. So we're gonna bolt this thing together, get it in the car, make sure it all fits, and then we'll just have to rip the box out later. While it's still in the chassis, shouldn't be too much work. But yeah, that's the plan today. So let's get these things married up, hopefully borrow a forklift off someone, and see if it fits in the car. All right, so it's time to drop the motor in. My neighbours thankfully let me lend the forklift, which is pretty flash one actually. It's got the kilos on there, and this thing weighs 530 kilos without any fluids in it, just for an idea. Now, the other cool thing with these mounts, they're actually using TD42 mounts, which is really good because they're obviously an Australian car, so you can just get them locally. So basically drop them on, and hopefully, I've managed to jag the balance on this thing. It's sitting pretty flat, so the idea is just to land it straight on these bolts, and then the transmission crossband will go on the backside, and then we'll see how it looks. Fingers crossed, eh? All right, so she is in. Never have I had so much money just hanging in thin air like that. That was pretty nerve-wracking considering it was just a chassis drop in that was kind of a pain in the butt. And that is because of a couple of things. Firstly, well, the steering box was in the way. I think I need to remove this shield here. Hopefully that sorts that problem out. But once we had moved the rack off, the thing pretty much dropped straight in. But it's in, all the bolts lined up, it's sitting good. So now I guess the next thing to do is just, well, everything else. Alrighty, so I'm getting a little bit, well, not sidetracked, but I didn't want to fully commit to putting this in, doing up all the engine mounts and that. It's actually a real pain in the butt to get in there and do that. So just in case it has to come out again, I'm going to hold off on that. So put the accessories on, the alternator and the aircon compressor back on. But I think what I'm going to do next is start playing with the fuel system. I was going to do that exhaust, but that'll be a job for tomorrow. I think I need a few more bits and pieces for that. So we're going to get cracking on with the fueling now. Obviously being a diesel, I'll talk about the sender in a sec because we don't have a pump in there anymore. So the DURAMAX actually has its own pump on the engine there, but to make that sort of last longer and help with the power and that, a lot of the guys over in America use what's called a lift pump. So the guys at FAS diesel fuel systems here, straight from the US of A, I've got one of their lift pumps, which is basically a little priming pump that feeds a diesel supply to the pump on the motor, and it also has a filter obviously, and then a water fuel separator. So it gets rid of the water out of your tank and your fuel line, and it also filters out any crap coming from the tank. So the plan is to mount that today. I think I found a spot where my old sway bar cross member used to be, which is a nice strong cross beam. So right here roughly, so this is where I'm thinking my exhaust is going to run through, straight through the guts there. And we'll mount this pump here, so it gives us enough clearance on the bottom for those two filters to not get damaged by anything. And then we can basically run a fuel line straight towards the motor, which is just a hard line. I'm going to use all the Raceworks AN fittings and everything, and then we run a line back as well. So a bunch of the same sort of fuel stuff that we used before. So I've got some dash 8 hose, which is basically 1/2 inch, whole lot of the fittings, and I've got some hose here as well, plenty of that to go in. So the job now, I'm going to tack up that bracket and weld it on, get the actual unit mounted, and then we can look at plumbing the thing up. We'll have a look at this fuel sender. Now, this was actually the old petrol sender, so it's still got this on here, and we had a pump in there. So I could have got another diesel one, but the diesel one would still need to be modified because the pipes aren't big enough. So with the DURAMAX, you want at least a 1/2 inch fuel feed. And then we're actually using the old return line here. So it's an 8mm return into the sender here. So basically we got them to just, I went down to a shop to do some brazing basically, and they put a piece down, and it's a lot longer than I need obviously. So what I'm gonna do now is just rip the cover off here and use a ruler or something to find the bottom of the tank, and then trim this back where it needs to be, put a couple little cuts in it so the fuel can get in nice and easy. And then we've got a fuel sender, because these things aren't cheap, and obviously this all still works with my fuel gauge, so I want that to all still work properly. I might rip this plug off, cut them off, or burn the solders off so we don't need that anymore. But yeah, let's trim this back, get it fitting properly, and then I've got a brand new O-ring, because a lot of time these O-rings, as soon as fuel gets on them and you take them apart, they expand and don't go back together properly. So I highly recommend putting new O-rings in when you're changing senders out, and then we can whack it on there, give it a lick of paint, should be good as new. Okay, fuel system is looking good. Just waiting on a couple of parts to finish it off. So basically this is what we got. I did have a clamp fitting here which goes onto the barbs, but I got a male end rather than a female end. I need to adapt from the dash 8 to a dash 10. So then we run our dash 10 fuel supply all the way to the lift pump. Then obviously the return line, I've just gone with the rubber hose supplied, and that'll go back into the tank. I'll probably end up using this little insert for the fuel filler so it can run back through that, because the other return on the sender will be from the motor. So yeah, lift pump is installed. Now this, I was going to use the 90 here, but I've decided to order a 120 degree, which will send it through here and connect to the hose there, which makes it fit a lot nicer along the back of the rail there. So that'll all get P-camped properly. But we've done the feed, that's all done. So we've got a 180 there. Comes through, it's all P-clamped along the chassis rail there. I'll put some heat shielding from about this point where it's near the exhaust, and then that runs up to the hard line, which has the same sort of clamp, and I'm waiting on that female rather than the male in there to adapt to the dash 10. So fuel system's basically as far along as we can go. I've put in the fuel water separator, the filters, the water separator. So that's all sorted. We're gonna move on because I'm waiting on those parts, and you don't really need to see the finish of that. It's pretty self-explanatory. So what we're gonna do is the next pain in the butt, which is the dump pipe. Now, big dramas, I'll just quickly let you know what's going on, because the Silverados, obviously, the exhaust runs down the, well, driver's side for us. That's their passenger side, because the transfer case sends the drive shaft on this side, but it's all flipped backwards on a patrol. So we essentially need to run the dump pipe down the passenger side, but because the banks are offset, you get real big dramas with the firewall here. So I've got a bunch of bends. So the Legends at Ben Brothers, they're actually really good because they stock a lot of this stuff. I just ran down there and got it straight off the shelf. A ton of bends in the 3.5 inch. So we'll have a quick look. I've got a couple of bends here. So the idea with the exhaust is do a full 4-inch stainless system, V-bands and everything, but the dump itself needs to be 3.5, I think it is, or 3-inch, so it can clear the firewall. So basically you're gonna come out of here, straight down there, and you wanna tuck as close as we can to the gearbox, the bell housing, and then run down the side. And around about this gap here is when we'll change it, step it up from 3.5 to 4-inch, and then shoot straight down the back. So let's start mocking this up with some tape in that, get the TIG out, and start making this dump pipe. Well, it's not pretty, but it's holding together without tape, so that's a win for me. We can continue on. The tacks are, I call that working. Okay, so with my limited TIG experience and the patience of a 2-year-old, we've come up with this. Yes, which isn't too bad. I was fighting the welder the whole time trying to get welds to line up and that, but some of the tacks worked. Anyway, that fit's not too bad. So now the next thing is to basically drop the body on and make sure we've got some firewall clearance. Gonna have to do a whole lot of beating to make it fit. Now I'm just sitting on a 3.5-inch V-band so I can put a join there, and then boom, reducer, and then 4-inch straight to the back. Sounds easy, but that's the next bit. I think Nathan's coming to help me again tomorrow. Alrighty, so today I'm in high vis, well not high vis, long sleeve, because I'm gonna be welding today. cracking on the exhaust, and I've learnt many times not to burn myself. Tigging is very bright arc as well. Got Nathan here too, he's on the slave labor today because we're gonna try and knock out as much of this exhaust as we can. So had a crack obviously with this dump pipe, came back this morning, wasn't real happy with it, so I'm gonna cut that and put a 45 in and just try and get it closer to the bell housing because clearance is key. Another thing we want to tick off the list today is drop the cab onto the chassis and just check that clearance to make sure that it's, well, we're gonna have to bash the firewall, but how much is the question. So we'll do a test fit, get the back half of the exhaust done, that's the plan for today. And, oh, visitors, hello.
What's wrong with your car?
Oh, I don't know. I think the whole half of it's missing.
Evidence.
Look at that. Yeah, bit of DI for you.
No, I did post. I did the outside.
So what do you reckon?
Extreme.
3 weeks and I'll be on the road? Why are you laughing?
I can't even organise me canopy to jack off in 3 weeks.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a bit on. All right, so the plan is, Nathan's been working on the stump pipe. We've cut off the pie cuts that I did and we've changed the shape up with a 45 to get that sitting tighter. On the back end, I've just started kind of recreating what was there. Obviously we're getting rid of mufflers and that because the petrol had a whole lot of this going on. So I've built a piece with a 45 and a 90 just to get that shape right, and then we'll run it along and join it into here where it's already 4-inch to begin with. So just gonna get the other side done with that and then start looking at putting the join in for a bit of a wire piece so it kind of matches the 2 into 1 here. And then once that's done, it's really just a straight run down to connect onto that piece and bang to the dump pipe. Sounds easy, should have it knocked out in a couple of hours. Not. All right, so I've got all the back bits cut up, put the first V-band on here. So big shout out to Ben Brothers, by the way. They're just down near, where's Ben Brothers? Near Morayfield? Yeah, near Morayfield in Queensland, near Brizzy. So I basically married it up to the original piece on the back, so we're ready to whack them on. So both sides, ready to weld them up, and then we can start looking at the wire piece. But before we do that, Nathan's really had as much as he can do on the dump pipe. So I think what we're gonna do now, try and drop the cab on. I'm gonna bash a bit of the firewall out to begin with because I know roughly where it's gotta happen. And then, yeah, try to line the cab up and then we can just basically drop it on and off with the hoist and just make sure that dump pipe's gonna clear everything. And then, yeah, knock it with a hammer where we need to until it looks good and then fully weld it up. So that's sort of the plan at the moment. And I've just realized this hits my bracket. Anyway, we'll sort that out. Brakes, 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 brakes! If you haven't heard me talk about brakes on this channel, then you've been living under a rock because they are the most important upgrade to do on a four-wheel drive. Now, you've heard me talk about brake upgrades before on this channel, but this is something new and it's for you dual cab owners out there with rear drum brakes. Now, the rest of you can go back and watch Nickelodeon. We're here for the real boys. So if you have a sweat dripping, work late, tradie, man's ute, a dual cab with a drum brake rear end, then this is a really, really good upgrade to do. Nice and affordable. It's not a full complete like disc brake conversion. You don't need that. This is an OEM replacement part, but comes with all the extra benefits of a brake upgrade kit. So obviously Bendix sell this, the ultimate four-wheel drive brake upgrade kits, which comes with your front rotors, they're slotted, vented, new pads and all sorts. So this is to go in combination with that. Now, basically what it is an upgraded drum and it comes with a matching shoe. Now they're the same size, so complete bolt-on replacement. It's no bigger or anything, but it's basically a real, the metallurgy, is that a word? Metallurgy? There's lots of chemical science in this thing with the carbon and stuff. It gives a greater friction. So in combination with this shoe, it'll actually give 15% increase in friction, making your brakes work a lot better. So if you're towing around a trailer, heavy loads, putting stuff in the back of your tray, using it as an actual dual cab, then this is a perfect upgrade for you. And it seriously won't break the bank. It's really nice and cheap compared to like doing a full-on disc conversion, which is a pain in the butt to do and really expensive. This is like less than an hour to do this conversion. So if you're in the market, guys, and you already have the ultimate brake upgrade for the front of your car, or you want to upgrade the rears or do both at the same time, definitely check out the ultimate four-wheel drive brake drum upgrade from Bendix. Anyway, guys, let's get back to the episode, and don't forget to support the businesses that support Built Not Bought. Brakes, 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 brakes. All right, so first test, I'm off from New Zealand, first test fit. The cab is sort of on. We've still got probably another 4 or 5 inches to go, so we're getting a general idea of how things are gonna look. I did that initial beat in the firewall, which has done probably 80% of the work there. We're looking pretty good, so once it's down fully, we'll know, but sitting nice and low in there, kind of, maybe, I don't know, we're still gotta drop the body more, but here, I'll try to get underneath here. Okay, so on the gearbox, there's a little rib up there. We need to knock a little bit of the cab in there and probably change the bolt out for a flush head. Exhaust, it's fitting all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna be right with the exhaust. Do the same size, a bunch of brackets we've got to take off on the gearbox as well, just to get some clearance. But other than that, this is the worst corner where the steering column goes through. Super tight through there, but that's another day's problem. So yeah, we'll just need to make sure these body mounts line up. So we might get some rubbers in here and put some bolts through and see if, we obviously want it dead on. Get that sorted first, and then we'll know where to build the exhaust around it. We'll be here a while. Alright, so while I've been going to get some lunch, Nathan just finished up the dump pipe, done the welding on it. Actually fits pretty good, like it's as tight as we can get to the bell housing, as tight as we can get to the other up pipe that's on there. So now I think, now that's sorted, it's time to make just the cab fit. So I've done a bit more bashing on that to hopefully make it all clear. I think we'll try and drop the cab down now and get it to fit again. But the V-band just got in there too. We ended up going the 3-inch. And then it goes straight to 4-inch. It's pretty much as quick as we can go to 4-inch with the clearance that we got. And then the rest of it is all 4-inch, and then we'll split off, bang, do the backside. All right, so this will make you laugh. So the next thing we're gonna do is make a Y piece, which is essentially the exact same as this, where the two pieces kind of blend together and marry up to make one. But obviously we've got to make it out of 4-inch. And Nathan's like, oh, you watch this TikTok I found. And no shit, he's doing it right now. So the idea is to weld some crappy tacks on that, throw that into the drop saw, and then you can cut. It makes sense, right?
Let's do it.
So thanks to whoever made that TikTok. Whose account was it?
Second stage, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of TikTok, we've got another.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. He's just bought another project car. His video's cracking up anyway.
Too many project cars, mate.
Yeah, you must get so many people say, why'd you do that? It's so stupid. It's like, well, that's the point, to be stupid.
Yes, exactly right.
Oh, bring that over here. There it is. Who is it? Second stage. See, look, you throw it in the saw. Bang, bang.
Done.
Yeah. Yeah, nah, that dipstick's definitely gonna have to go away. Oh. Dude, it looks good. Yet. Don't worry about the sander. Oh, dude. That's gonna work, maybe, kind of. A bit of trimming.
Look at that.
But that's not half bad. Obviously, you saw how we did that joint, and it's slightly pulled in the edges. If you look, I probably should have checked this at the start, but if you put a straight edge across there, they kind of kick out a bit on each side, and I thought that'd be dead straight through. So measured up the whole exhaust and got that nice and square. But then this side, oh, she ain't square, it goes that way. So I'm gonna do a cut here and just kick it out so that's all flush. And then that's basically the back end sorted. And then really the mission today is to try and get this middle bit done, because we got a, where's the flex joint? Got a flex joint here, so that's in. Another length of stainless we needed. And the discoloration that we were getting, Nathan found a, what tip is that? Like a mixed
It's a multi-mix.
So hopefully that'll get the welds a bit more color, because they're still coming out grey. I got a new bottle of gas yesterday, still a little bit grey. So this is the kind of the last resort. And if that still doesn't happen, then it must just be the humidity in my shed. I don't know, because everything else is his and he doesn't get that crazy grey color. So we'll see what happens, but more welding today. Hopefully the exhaust will get finished. Throw some hangers on there, get it mounted to the chassis, and Bob's your uncle.
This looks sick, eh? You
All
cover
right.
who this?
Yeah, A73 Life.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so what update am I going to give you? Because I forget where we're at. I've started on the intercooler, so already worked out roughly where I wanted it. This is actually the same intercooler that I ran on the 80. It worked really well there, so I've gone the same again. It's a 600 by 300 built by Adrad. So just put up some brackets. I'm gonna do a bit of a rubber join kind of slot in there, and then it's bolted to the top. So that's almost done. We're just waiting on some alley bits to finish that off, and then we'll get onto the intercooler piping, which I think we're gonna do out of complete aluminium because I'm gonna powder coat them, and it holds its heat better, or doesn't put as much heat through it, and we can paint them. But we've got a visitor.
Woo! Good.
You bought me some toys, some treats. Where is it?
I've got a big sinker over there.
What have they painted it white? Anyway, don't worry about the color. They just sprayed it with a spray can, but the weak link on these gearboxes are the converters. So this is a billet triple plate lock-up clutch. So normally they've just got a single clutch, and it kind of, you put some torque through it and it spins. So this has got 3 discs, apparently, hopefully, if they did it right, and it'll handle a bit more power. So did they tell you what it was to?
No, they didn't tell me nothing.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll see how we go. Anyway, we've got to put that in. Nice moustache.
Hang on, thanks.
Dude, it's better than mine.
Tonight and go full ham with it. Go full Mexican.
I know, I need to shave my face. It sucks because people like you grow it in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And this is like 4 years of my life.
I'm a hairy man.
And it's like, yeah.
Car's looking mint though, hey?
Yeah, it's coming together good. Well, that's another thing I probably didn't tell you, it actually fits. We've dropped the body completely on right down to the rubbers. These all line up to the body mounts, and we've got clearance everywhere. It's mint. So I even sorted out the fuel feed line. So yeah, it's so big.
Love when the celly gon' ring. I'm putting on my team. Money come flowing, no sink. Spring, 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 spring. Double cup, cup my drink. Love my little baby, no leak. I be counting money, no shit.
Alrighty, so I've actually done a bit since I last spoke to you, which we've pretty much finished the exhaust. So we've actually added the probe in for the EGT, that's in there. Put a couple of mounts on, so this is all solid mounted to the motor, and we've done a hard mount there, so none of this moves, it all stays with the motor. Then after that's the flex join, and then we go to some rubbers, so I've added a rubber join there to hold the weight, and then the 2 at the back, which were originally there anyway from the old Patrol. That's where the old exhaust was. But the rest of it's come up pretty good. All the tigging's done, all V-bands, all joins sorted, so that will pretty much wrap it up for this episode, because now there's a lot of little things. I'm going to drop the cab back on and start measuring out for all power steering lines and stuff like that. I want to heat wrap the exhaust, start looking at intercooler lines, which I was hoping to do in this episode, but there's a bit more stuff around with that because we've decided to do all that aluminium, so we need to get some more bends and bits for that. Looking good to get this thing sorted in time for the trip in like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if that's going to happen. Wiring will be the biggest thing. That's the next challenge. So we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Thanks for watching. See you there. Hello guys, and welcome to Built Not Bought HQ. Make sure to click on the far left to subscribe to the channel. Click down below to see the latest episode if you missed it. And don't forget our merchandise on our website. See you in the next episode.